The Department of State Services has asked a federal high court in Abuja to restrain a politician and public intellectual, Professor Utomi, from further making public comments or staging rallies to promote his shadow government. In a fresh application brought before the court, the Secret Service alleged that it became aware by intelligence reports that Utomi, who is out of the country and is due to return on June 6th, plans to stage road shows and rallies which it fears could lead to public discontent against President Bola Tinubu's administration. Now joining us live from Abuja is Dr. Sam Amadi, Executive Director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us on the news, Dr. Amadi. Now, Dr. Amadi, if there's one thing American democracy seems to have sold the world, is that democracy allows all ideas to show up in the marketplace. Do you think the system is fretting over a shadow government, and to what end?
Well, thank you for having me. Obviously, the system is threatened, and perhaps not for good reason. The point is, there's no doubt that Mr. Prof. Utomi has a right to freedom of movement, association, and speech, as the Constitution guarantees, no doubt about that. The question is, does a proclamation or a wish expressed that some people come together and say they are a shadow cabinet, does it amount to security risk? Does it amount to a declaration of alternative government? The answer is no, because if you look at the definition of shadow government, shadow government is like a mock government. It's a fiction. It says that they're not going to exercise any governmental power. They're not going to. They're not claiming that they have a territory to administer law. All the government do that you need to govern, which is make laws, enforce obedience, arrest people, sanction people, award benefits from public resources and public. They're not going to do none of this. So I think it's really a mark of how frightening the idea of shadow government as Tom is proposing sounds to government, and expectedly DSS maybe a smart move. I mean, look, the whole essence is to gag, is to sort of get a gag order. So if Tom plan to come around, have some roadshow, which is legitimate under our constitution, have some rallies, which is legitimate under our constitution. If they manage to secure an order of court saying, you know what, injunction for the time being, then they have frustrated, any such political, event, which is permissible for citizens and groups and organizations, however style. So for me, it's a cynical tackle to achieve the idea of aborting maybe a public demonstration of lack of confidence in government, and DSS goes ahead to try to get this order. If they succeed, legally speaking, I don't think the court is bound to get that interim order, because what are you losing? Interim order should not operate to stop citizens expressing their constitutional right, except to show some, prima facie evidence that the actions planned were illegal. So what actions? Rallies? Is there anything that they are planning to do that's illegal? To convince the court that perhaps it's more in public interest to restrain a party as good. So, well, it's not it to be a legal battle, but this is the context in which this legal battle is playing out. It's an attempt to stop an inconvenient political move and political event that may not go well for the management of reputation of the government.
Well, Dr. Amadi, but what real-world consequences, could such a government actually pose?
So you mean consequences to part or to government?
To the shadow government. So what real-world consequences can, a shadow government cause or pose?
Well, okay, look at what it does. In terms of political communication, a shadow government, if manned by political people and proposed by somebody of what, could become a rallying point for, debunking and dramatizing the failure of government. So shadow government, for example, Pat Utomi touted me as Attorney General and Minister of Justice, the shadow government. So what does that mean? So if he says, oh, Sam is a Minister of Justice, it carries some, civic prestige, and then I'll be in a position to counter maybe the narrative of the Attorney General. So if, for example, let's say declaration of state of emergency in River State, the central government can issue a statement and say, in our view, this is unconstitutional. Now, it does not in any way constitute an action that the court should declare so, or the police should not enforce the law of the orders of the administrator. It simply goes to public comprehension and public opinion. And then it creates a real discursive context, epistemic engagement that maybe going to form the weakness, the logical weakness of the government's policy pronouncements, and shows up alternatives that makes those failure, alternatives that make those failure glaring. So it's actually a political communicational effect that it develops. And again, it might over time erode the legitimacy, political, not legal, in the eyes of the people of the government, because the alternative is now the shadow government as to where is producing a better notion of economic governance, of social governance, of inclusion, whatever issues that people think about. They can now say, look, these guys get it, these guys don't get it. And that further shows government imbalance. So this is really has impact in the perception of performance of government, because there's now a group of persons who show that these policies don't make sense, and this is alternative that government is not pursuing. In that sense, it's good. In another sense, really, it can help government also to develop, framework feedback about their policy, so they can actually borrow from the shadow government policy, because the shadow government has no territory, no authority to govern. They can only bring ideas, and so it could improve the policy rigor and quality of what government does if government is going to sit for a process. So it has both negative and positive for government, but legally speaking, it poses no security threat in any sense.
All right. Now, even if such an order was granted, it could be appealed. Now, do you foresee a scenario, where the DSS resorts to force, especially when Professor Utomi comes back into the country? Because in the first place, it is the police that ought to be prosecuting and not the DSS.
Well, if the DSS is a law-abiding institution, I think they should be, then having gone to the court challenge is action of or proposed action of a citizen, and they should be rest assured and leave to the court to declare on the constitutionality or legality, actually, because when party totally asked me, I said it's neither legal or illegal. This is a civic action. They are going to do it's not unconstitutional. It's not constitutional in the sense that you have the authority. You are simply a citizen expressing a view. Now, if the DSS is law-abiding, then they will not do that. But look, I've lived in this country for long, and I've been part of several military rules, seen democratic rules that also act authoritarianly. I think that it's not, unimaginable that they could, try to perhaps act contrary to the civic manner by maybe trying to restrain him, maybe trying to arrest, but that would be unfortunate. That would be clearly an abuse of court process, because again, when you file a suit against somebody in court, then you've taken the issue to the court, and you have to await judicial pronouncement. Except President has committed another offense, the real offense, that he needs to be, processed legally. Otherwise, this matter is not squarely a matter of legal contest. It has nothing to do with arrest. It has nothing to do with state security anymore.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Amadi, for your time and for speaking to us.